Hey, right, we've got the EICMA coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and then towards the end of November, of course, we've got Motorcycle Live coming up. Both shows traditionally in motorcycling display all the latest models from all the well-known motorcycle manufacturers, plus usually at the EICMA the introduction of brand new as yet unseen models. And Norton Motorcycles have quietly announced that there will be two new model names returning at the EICMA, the Manx Norton and the new Norton Atlas. Now, I've not made a video about Norton for quite some time. I think the last iteration of the Norton Motorcycle Company sort of all blew up during the pandemic, during Stuart Garner's reign. Now, Stuart Garner created a huge smear on the famous Norton name, despite government grants and lots of orders from customers, including quite sizable deposits. Norton Motorcycles turned into what was effectively a big Ponzi scheme. It would appear that Garner was skimming huge amounts of money off to fund his lavish lifestyle and wasn't really leaving enough money left over to build any motorcycles. Eventually got into a situation where he was relying on new deposits on motorcycles which so far hadn't gone into production in order to pay for bikes that had already been paid for by customers that had been waiting months or years for the bikes. And even when these bikes were built and delivered, there were numerous problems with them. And Norton Motorcycles eventually found themselves in a situation where customers' bikes that had come in for warranty work were being stripped of parts to build bikes to send out for waiting customers. It was a mess, and if I remember correctly, it all eventually crumbled in 2020. Norton went into receivership and was eventually saved by TVS Motorcycles of India, and then it all sort of went a bit quiet. Now, TVS Motorcycles is a huge motorcycle manufacturer in India. They build over 4 million motorcycles a year, which puts them firmly in the middle of the top 10 biggest motorcycle companies in the world. So I think it's fair to say that Norton name is in very capable hands. Now, when they took Norton over, they had an enormous mess to unpick. If I remember correctly, they chose to fulfil the orders of bikes that had already been ordered and paid for, which is a very honest way to kick off their stewardship of the Norton name. They also sorted out some of the design problems with the existing bikes, and they built a new factory. Now, most of the Norton lineup up to this point had been modern classic motorcycles with a very hefty price tag between £30,000 and £50,000 per model, obviously depending on the model and the specification. Premium motorcycles with a premium price tag that most of us can't afford. Now, the introduction of the Atlas model, modern classic scrambler type motorcycle, was supposed to buck this trend, coming in at about £10,000, something a bit more affordable and mainstream. But despite the fact that Garner had taken tens of thousands of pounds in deposits for this bike, it turned out it wasn't ready for production, and what had actually been showing everybody were just hollow mock-ups. So one of the first things that Norton did under TVS stewardship is scrap it. It turned out not to be a viable model. Now, as I've said, things seem to go a bit quiet with Norton. Yes, a new factory and little snippets of news coming out here and there, but I sort of lost interest because they seem to be continuing to concentrate on those premium priced bikes, which isn't my thing really. They've put nearly £200 million into developing Norton motorcycles, and now they've announced two brand new models. Norton, it would appear, have done a fantastic job of keeping these two projects secret, and they're due to be unveiled at the EICMA in Milan next month. So hopefully we'll see them at the Motorcycle Live show a couple of weeks later in Birmingham here in the UK. Now, there is a new V4 range as well, a premium range V4 and a more affordable V4, but I'm not going to talk about those in this video. The names that have been mentioned is the Manx Norton and a new Atlas. It looks like Norton has just spent the last 5 years treading water and getting all the ducks in the row ready to start proper. Now, starting with the Atlas, this is intended to be an adventure tourer motorcycle, and it's unlikely that it's going to bear any resemblance to the pretend Atlas that we saw 5 years ago. This is going to be a contemporary motorcycle. It will not be a modern classic. Now, I believe the original Norton Atlas was a scrambler. It was a 750 twin, if my memory serves me correctly, and we know from little things that journalists have seen on TVS factory tours that for quite some time TVS have been developing a 750 twin engine. I'm not sure whether this is water-cooled or air-cooled, but it's been mooted that this engine is destined for the new Atlas platform. Now, this bike could go either way, really. It could still be a premium priced motorcycle. After all, the adventure touring segment is one of the most popular in the worldwide market at the moment. But it will have some stiff competition from the likes of Triumph and, of course, BMW with the GS models. And it only being a 750, I don't think it would make much sense for it to be a premium bike. It's going to have to come in at a reasonably acceptable price to stand a chance of getting a piece of that market. Part of TVS's strategy with these new bikes is to move away from the modern classic market, which, I fully understand that. I think they've got to move away from the Stuart Garner era and come out with something completely fresh and new in order to get a foothold in the market before they perhaps go back to making models like that. If indeed they ever do. Adventure tourers are not really my thing, not anymore. The bike that does interest me is the new Manx Norton. Now, I suppose opinions will be divided on this, but the Manx Norton, I think, was the most revered motorcycle model of that golden Brit bike era. The name was derived from Norton's success at the Isle of Man TT, and it was introduced, I think, in 1947. I'm going strictly on memory here, so don't quote me if I get it wrong. I think it was discontinued in the late 1950s, maybe the early 1960s. It started off as a 350cc single and eventually grew to be a 500cc single, a legendary bike. And it's actually this bike that kept the Norton name alive during the 1980s and 90s. I think it was under American ownership then, and they occupied their time purely building Manx Norton replicas, a hand-built low production model. Now, TVS have known to be developing a 450cc, I think it's a twin liquid-cooled motor, capable of putting out just under 50 brake horsepower. And we've known about this engine for quite some time. Now, this may well be destined for some TVS models, but I think it's very likely that this is the motor that's going to go into the new Manx Norton. It just fits in so many ways, apart from the fact it's a twin cylinder instead of a single. Again, this is going to be a contemporary machine. It's not going to be a modern classic, but it's going to be available in two trim levels, at the standard Manx Norton and the Manx S. Now, out of all the bikes that are mooted to be released here, it's the standard Manx that interests me the most. This is going to be a naked Roadster configuration, with the S version presumably being a more sports orientated fully fared version. Now, India have recently implemented some new tax regulations for motorcycles, favouring below 400cc bikes. So being a 450, I would imagine it is aimed more at worldwide export, and we don't know whether it's going to be made in the UK or whether it's going to be made in India. Now, Norton have a new UK factory, But in the current economic climate, it's difficult to say how Norton would be able to build these bikes for a reasonable price. I think it's more likely, if they are going to put them together here, they will literally be put together from kits supplied by the Indian TVS factory. And if it isn't a bike that is too modern in its appearance, a little bit more traditional, hopefully, it is a bike that would interest me, I think. Because on the face of it, you know, it being a smaller capacity 450cc motor, I think we stand a fighting chance of it being quite affordable. Although I think that probably would depend on them perhaps being partially assembled here in the UK from kits built in India. I know Norton have always aspired to building their bikes here in the UK, but the economic climate for production in the UK just is not right at this time. Now, granted, I know there are a lot of ifs and buts in this video, but I don't think I'm going to be too wide of the mark on this one. All we can do really is wait for the EICMA next month and see what they actually unveil and what the prices are going to be. But what I will say is I am very relieved that on the face of it, it looks like Norton is moving away from that ridiculously priced premium brand production model, perhaps providing us with something a little bit more within reach to the masses. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like and hype this video if the hype button is available to you. It does make a difference to the videos. You could also subscribe to this channel if you're not already a subscriber. There are other ways you can help me out via my Patreon page or PayPal donations, or if you wish, you can use the super thanks button down below, which seems the most popular option these days. Not essential, but it is appreciated. I will of course be back next week, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.